This is the story of a psycho father who locks his daughter in the basement for years, tortures her, and when this does not satisfy him, he uses her for pleasure and impregnates her 4 times. And when she runs for her life, he does not hesitate attempting to kill her. The story opens with a man and a woman rushing a small child to the hospital, and as soon as they arrive, the doctors take the child inside. While the parents wait in fear, the story moves back 20 years earlier. At that time, a family is sitting together at the dinner table, and among them is a teenage girl named Sarah. She says she wants to go to a party, and she is already getting ready to leave. However, her father Don stops her and tells her she is not going anywhere. Instead, she must sit down and eat with the family because in his house, everyone follows his rules. Sarah tries to explain that her mother allowed her to go, yet Don says she did not ask him, so therefore she cannot step outside. Sarah feels angry and hurt, so she walks to her room and shuts the door. Later that night, she quietly climbs out of the back window. Meanwhile, her boyfriend Michael arrives on his bike, and together they leave for the party. For a short while, she feels free. However, after some time, her parents realize she is missing, and Don becomes furious. The next morning, Sarah returns home and tries to sneak back inside, yet Don catches her and warns her again. Later, she tells her sister that Michael has proposed to her, and she plans to leave this house when she turns 18 because she wants freedom and a better life. Unfortunately, Don secretly hears this conversation, and instead of understanding her, he becomes tense and controlling. As a result, he goes down to the basement, where there is a hidden space that no one else knows about. A few days later, he calmly asks Sarah to come downstairs with him, and although she feels confused, she follows him. However, the moment she steps inside, he suddenly locks the door. Sarah stares at him in shock and keeps asking what he is doing, yet he walks away. She screams and begs him to let her out, and she calls for her mother, yet no one comes. Then she looks around and opens a box where she finds clothes, blankets, and food. Slowly, she understands that her own father has trapped her there. The door has a keypad and it only opens with a password. When she enters the wrong code, the lights and fans shut off and the room turns dark and silent. There is only a small window that lets in a little air, so she uses a battery light and stands near it while shouting for help, yet no one hears her. As the day turns into night, Sarah still does not return home, so her mother and sister grow worried. Her mother says Sarah never stays out this long, so something must be wrong, and she decides to call the police. Don acts calm and says she enjoys parties and will return soon, yet her mother does not trust his words and calls anyway. The next morning, Don visits the basement. Sarah manages to unlock the first door, yet the second door also needs a password. Before she can escape, Don catches her and drags her back inside, warning her that he changes the codes daily. He coldly tells her she can have books or even a television, yet she must earn them. Soon after, he assaults her. Days later, Sarah realizes she is pregnant, and at the same time, a police officer arrives to question the family. Dawn lies smoothly and claims she planned to leave at 18, while her sister nervously denies knowing about any boyfriend. A week passes and Sarah feels sick, lonely, and broken, yet deep inside she knows she must find a way out somehow. One morning, Michael comes to the house hoping to see Sarah. However, Dawn meets him at the door and calmly says that Sarah ran away with an old friend to New York, and she will not return. Michael stands there in shock, and after a few seconds, he leaves heartbroken. After some weeks, on Sarah's birthday, Don comes to the basement with a small cake and a red coat as a gift. He behaves sweet and speaks softly, yet soon his true nature returns, and he forces himself on her again. Later, when she is alone, Sarah sharpens the lid of a can and turns it into a weapon. So when Don enters next time, she suddenly attacks him. For a moment, he is surprised, yet he quickly grabs her and pushes her back. He holds her tightly and says this attempt is useless, and if she ever tries again, she will suffer badly. After that, days slowly turn into months. 4 months pass, then 5, then 9. Since Sarah is pregnant, the time finally comes for her to give birth. She sits alone in a corner in pain and fear, and somehow delivers the baby by herself. When Don comes later, he looks at the child and says, becoming a mother is a good thing, and now she has to live for her baby. Sarah quietly replies that she will take care of the child, and he does not need to worry. He brings some food and basic items, and among those things there is a sharp object. She holds it for a second and looks at him, yet he warns her not to even think about using it. 4 years pass and her daughter grows up inside that basement. Sarah asks Don for a TV because there is no entertainment, and the child needs something to watch. Don says he got promoted at work and will bring one at Christmas. Later at dinner, his wife suggests hiring a private detective to find Sarah. Don suddenly gets angry and says there is no need, because she left them on her own. After some days, he brings a TV to the basement. More years pass, and now Sarah has a son and a daughter. The girl develops asthma because there is very little air in the basement. When she becomes very sick, Don brings medicine. However, Sarah says this medicine is for adults, and the child needs a hospital. He ignores her words and leaves. One day, Michael returns still searching for answers. Sarah's sister speaks to him and slowly realizes that Don lied years ago. As a result, she begins to suspect him. Later, she finds his keys and secretly goes near the basement. She notices strange daily use items stored there. Don catches her and warns her never to come again. Soon, Sarah gives birth to a third child. Don complains about expenses while Sarah begs him to let them go and promises she will stay silent. He refuses. Then she suggests sending the baby to her mother. Don leaves the baby at his house door with a fake note. Her mother takes the child inside. Hidden in the basket is another note asking for help, yet Don finds it and tears it up. That evening, he returns to the basement and tells Sarah she has made another mistake. After that, he assaults her again. Years pass and almost 14 years go by. Sarah becomes pregnant once more and her children grow older in that dark space. One morning, they are having breakfast while Sarah cuts her son's hair. Just then, her daughter comes out wearing makeup. Don looks at her in a disturbing way. Sarah immediately becomes furious and tells him to stay away from her daughter and not even look at her. He leaves in anger and switches off the power. When the electricity goes off, the airflow also stops. Therefore, all of them sit near the small window just to breathe. Her daughter innocently asks how her parents met and how they got married. However, Sarah lies gently and somehow she calms them down. After a few days, heavy rain starts pouring and slowly water begins leaking into the basement through a small pipe. Sarah notices it and breaks a little space near the leak, hoping someone will hear her, yet no one does. As evening comes, she flashes a light through that opening, trying to signal for help. A man walking his dog notices the light and thinks someone is signaling, so he tells Don. Don dismisses it, saying it is nothing, and turns off the light. Then he storms downstairs in anger and brutally beats Sarah. She is already pregnant, and because of the beating, the baby dies inside her womb. Later, Don buries the dead child outside, showing no remorse. Years pass again, and now the children are 18. They keep asking Sarah why they cannot go outside, play football, go to college, or make friends. They grow impatient and accuse her of hiding something. She tries to calm them and control them, yet they refuse to stay quiet. Finally, she breaks down and tells them the horrifying truth. She explains that Don is not her husband, but her father, and he has kept them captive and abused her for 20 years. The children are shocked and ask why she never escaped. Sarah says she tried many times, yet every attempt failed, and once she became a mother, her chances became even smaller. That evening, Don returns to the basement and brings supplies. However, Sarah's son, full of anger, attacks him, shouting that they want to go outside and be free. Don reacts violently, pushes him down, and locks the door again, switching off the power. Then he begins to think. He realizes the children are grown up and together they might fight back. Because of this fear, he makes a terrible plan. Later, he goes to the garage, turns on the car, and lets the exhaust smoke flow into the basement so they slowly suffocate. He keeps pressing the accelerator. Meanwhile, the older son hears the noise and goes near the garage. Don quickly turns off the car, pretending he was just checking it. His plan fails, and that night he goes to see if they are dead, yet they are still alive. A few days later, during a football celebration upstairs, Sarah's daughter suddenly struggles to breathe because of asthma. Sarah begs Don to take her to the hospital. At first, he refuses, yet after a long argument, he agrees, warning her to stay quiet and leaving their son locked behind. Then both of them drive to the hospital, which is actually the same scene shown at the beginning. At the hospital, the doctor asks them to fill a form. Don starts writing, but Sarah spills water on it on purpose, so he has to get another one. As soon as he leaves, she runs to the doctor and a police officer and asks for help. Don follows her, yet the police immediately become suspicious and arrest him. Sarah finally reveals everything about the torture, abuse, and years of captivity. She calls her mother and asks her to rescue her son from the basement. Soon, the police free her children. After a few days, they are safe and happy. Michael comes to see Sarah and apologizes for believing her father's lies. She forgives him. He gives her an old gift and asks her to go on a long drive, and she agrees. Together, they leave, free from the past. The story ends here.